Today on the Videomaker podcast, Chris and I talk all about the new MacBook Pro. This is actually kind of an exciting computer. We have been looking at the laptop industry for quite a while and been kind of bored with it, I guess. I don't know if bored is not the wrong term, but you know, we just keep seeing these sort of iterative improvements, and the MacBook Pro really has some exciting features, particularly the merging of the GPU and the CPU into a single chip. Now, this is not exactly new. It came out with the M1, but the new M1 Pro and the M1 Max take it to kind of a whole new level. And we were lucky enough to get one a little bit early, so we got it after the announcement, but kind of before everyone at home gets theirs. So we have a little bit of hands-on time with it, and there's a lot about this laptop that's worth discussing. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you went to iTunes or Spotify or whatever app you use and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It will deliver the podcast straight to your mobile device every time we release one. Okay, all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, is Chris Monlux.
Hello.
Okay, Chris, we've got some news as of last week. I guess this will go up on Monday, so the news came out, the prior week. Is that right?
Yeah, it came out this week, and we're taping it a week before.
Right.
So.
The new MacBook Pro came out, and we were fortunate enough to get our hands on one a little early, I guess, after the announcement, but before most people are getting theirs at home.
Yeah. It's in last week we got a stoic email from our Apple contact with a tracking number. We're sending you something.
Yeah.
And all we could do is speculate on what we thought it was. Apple doesn't want to be quoted, doesn't want to, any of that kind of stuff. So we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, we knew that, or at least I knew that there was probably going to be a MacBook Pro announcement, just mainly because I've been in the market for a computer and I've been watching the rumors and
that's right,
and all that. I did end up buying one of these because it's been almost 10 years since I bought a computer, so time for a new one.
Yeah, well, and it was funny because I got done with the presentation and I come into Mike's office and I'm like, hey, looks like that package is probably a MacBook Pro. And you're like, yeah, I'm buying one right now. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, so we knew that it was going to be MacBook Pro. We didn't know about all the specs, obviously. I think the rumor mills knew the name of it, that it was going to be called Max, M1 Max.
I mean, that is kind of in their naming protocol.
Yeah. But the specs are new to everyone, and actually kind of speaks to the excitement that Apple has around this product, that they were proactive in reaching out to us and sending us a unit. Actually, with Apple and Videomaker. Videomaker obviously is a niche media company. We're not CNET by any means. So we work really hard to gain access to editorial information. And some companies are easier than others to get information from.
Yeah.
Apple is one of the harder ones. We tend to have to pry info out of them. We actively make requests for evaluation units. This time, they came to us, they booked many meetings, and they sent a product unsolicited, which to me says they really think they're really proud of this device.
Yeah, well, especially in the video production space. And I can tell you what, based on the way they presented the computer, at least the 16-inch M1 Max, they're talking to video professionals. This is the system that that I feel like the Mac Pro, the cheese grater. I mean, it was, some people needed it, right? They needed to make that upgrade, but it was just so expandable that top price was just so like, whoa, how much is this and that kind of thing. And then in their presentation, they quoted the laptop being faster than the crazy cheese grater, and that's pretty nuts. But I had to be pretty. You got to take their numbers with a grain of salt, because they do like multipliers, 6 times faster, or does this thing. There's always caveats and stuff. So our goal, we're gonna do some rendering on multiple machines. We have a pretty beefy HP machine right now that's high-end ZBook. We have the prior MacBook, so we'll be able to really see how much benefit you actually get to the normal, or not normal. just the more typical video editor, right? They showed, Cinema 4D and showed some higher end work being done on it, more computational. But really the big thing is that now there isn't a discrete GPU, but that the GPU and the CPU share RAM and are on one piece of silicon. And this is that right there is the innovation I see as being like, whoa, wait a second. I mean, like, Intel has already released chips with discrete GPUs, but they haven't been performers. This has been like as a cost saving method. Oh, you don't need a GPU because we'll just build it on with the chip and all that kind of stuff. So they've never been. This has not been a high end idea. But with them redesigning and really the idea of it being their own silicon, right? So Intel ain't getting no more money from Apple. AMD not getting any more. Well, maybe they are on other systems as they're moving them out or whatever. But I imagine that everything they release from here on out has to be that or at least their own silicon, because they've been putting a lot of effort into it. I mean, some of these releases, like the MacBook, you're saying it's been a long time since they've released an update. It was 16. No, they've done one since then. They've done the M1 14-inch one.
Yeah,
but it was
original, the first generation M1.
Yeah, but it was a small screen, and like I don't know about you, but I don't know if I could accept a 14-inch screen. I'm used to like two 27-inch screens, both being at least 4K. When I'm working in any kind of laptop space, I'm always like, this feels cumbersome. But a 14-inch screen, I don't know if I could go with. But this is one step up. The M1 Max and the M1 Pro are the new silicon with the GPU built in.
Yeah. And, it's kind of a shame because from what we can tell, the M1 Pro and M1 Max just smoke even the M1 in performance. And people who bought the M1 are kind of bummed about that. They're like, I just bought this computer like this year.
Yeah.
And now it's obsolete.
I wouldn't say obsolete, but
well, so the M1, actually, I think even to this day, can only run a single external monitor. And like you said, on a 14-inch screen.
Yeah.
Which is pretty limiting.
Is it 14?
Is it 14?
13? I think it might be or 12. There's three sizes now, 14, 16, but then I think the smallest one is the first one. I think we might be wrong in there. But
there's a 13, yeah. Sorry. It's
so you do one external screen, but that's also true for the 14-inch. But it can do two screens, and then the 16-inch can do three, which I've never used three screens before. I've never had the need. I've used a really ginormous big screen before, and honestly, if I'm having to turn my body to see a part of the screen, it's probably not an area that I'm using that much. But I'm the updated screen, so it's now what are they calling it? Something retina, like fluid retina or something else. But it looks really nice. Does have a little spot for the webcam, which everybody was like. I read the rumor sites that were talking about that notch for the webcam that they're going to use tricky marketing and only show pictures in the screen that don't show off the notch.
Well, I'm looking at the order page now.
Yeah,
it's the Liquid Retina XDR display, and sure enough, they've got like a 16:9 image on the screen
with black borders.
With black, letterboxing.
But just during the presentation, it was there, and it's now 1080, which I think is interesting to be like touting a 1080 camera, but it's a webcam, so that makes sense. But
there's a lot of discussion online about how does the mouse interact with that notch too, right? Like it could be a real pain if, for example, it can get caught on the notch. But we could confirm it goes through the notch. It goes behind it, I guess.
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense if it like stopped because
you
there's a little spot
hooked on there,
Well, you have that when you're dealing with like external monitors or different monitors of different sizes and stuff. Like every once in a while, you just can't get them quite aligned right. So
someone online was commenting how about this is great that it goes behind the notch because when you're watching a video, you can hide your mouse pointer behind it.
Yeah. That's that's positive thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's taking it the right way. Well, and we've had the argument because we were talking about so we have access to this, but we only review cameras these days. Not that we have, not in the history, but right now all we do is review cameras. So, and about the furthest stretch of that is a camera that is mounted on a drone. AKA just a drone.
A drone, yeah.
But that, so we've covered that. So we were like, well, what do we do here? You know, do we have to just go and like call the laptop companies and go, hey, we need something? But I think we decided that like, this is exciting. This is something that is innovative and people want to know about it. So we're going to have to make something so that people see it. And it, you know, the idea of keeping balance amongst the brands that we share, you know, if other stuff came out innovative, we'd feel the same way and want to reach out. But Mike and I do use Macs on a daily basis. So I think we have a little bit of
there is a bias for them built in here. Although I do have a Windows machine at home that, you know, I use for gaming, and that's about it. I really, though, you know, just to acknowledge my bias, I really don't like Windows. I don't have a problem with PCs, the devices, but I prefer OS X over Windows, you know, most of the time. But yeah, that's, you know, there is the question of why do we review this and not, you know, whatever Windows laptop is coming out.
Yeah.
A Dell or HP or Razer, I guess.
Yeah, or a box or anything else. But, and it's just the thing is that in this case, we want to prove the claims to be true because I mean, when the biggest company in the world releases something in our space, we need to put its feet to the fire and either affirm or disprove their claims.
Yeah, especially when their claims are so extraordinary.
And that they're so specific to our world. You know, if it was like, oh, this is a great video editing program, and you could also do gaming. Like, they don't talk about gaming. They're Macs, obviously. Yeah. I mean, people game on Macs, but not at the same level. Yeah. And so I get that. I mean, I'm kind of agnostic. You know, I really the only thing I favor is what I've been using most recently, so that my muscle memory is the same. So I'm not frustrated when I'm trying to find something. But jumping around from PC to whatever, you know, it's just so many of my programs now I can do on either one. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting in the demo, they led, you know, they actually did a number of different pieces of software, like basically, oh, look how, you know, great it runs. This incredible, you know, incredibly high bitrate video plays at, you know, real time or whatever. Anyways, they did, you know, some coding stuff, some music production stuff, some 3D modeling stuff. And then they got to the video and they led with Premiere, which was astonishing to me. You know, normally they talk about Final Cut, not only because they own Final Cut, they make Final Cut, but because it's the most smooth editing experiences in Final Cut Pro on Macs typically.
Yeah, I mean they designed a portion of the new M1 Max for specifically handling ProRes video and encoding it, and so it's if you're working in ProRes, the thing is though, ProRes is agnostic now. You can put it on any, you know, you can be on Premiere. I think that Apple's got to be a little bit smart in knowing that like Adobe is the, you know, gorilla in the corner that they have to say exists. You know, that like I think they, you know, if they're selling computers, they're realizing people are going to run any software on it. And we had a separate meeting that was talking about updates to Final Cut. But I'm not sure if I can talk about those, so we won't go any deeper. I'm not really sure on the embargo date on it, but
I'll look it up in real time here while we're talking.
Yeah, that way we can go into deeper details. But I think it makes good sense that they're showing off other software, and really, to be frank, I think that Adobe long ago they realized that they're not selling machines as much anymore, leading with their software. You know, Final Cut sold a lot of machines back in the day, but it's not the leading editor anymore. Some people really love it. I think it's one of those things where, like, if you get used to using it, there are some really innovative things that Final Cut allow you to do, like the magnetic timeline, and in this case now, you're going to be able to deal with, like, what did they say, 4 8K raw, I imagine ProRes raw files, playing simultaneous, which I think is interesting because, like, I don't ever play 4 8K raw video files at one time. I mean, maybe, I guess if you have the capabilities, you start having the need. But you know, but it is one of those things where you can handle, you know, more than that. And if you're doing, you know, some kind of composite or multicam or something, I mean, if you're doing a multicam in 8K raw, man, you're pretty awesome. That's a pretty cool project. But really, I think the big thing is it's got shared RAM between the GPU and the CPU, which allows for I mean, up to 64 gigs of VRAM in that case, which is significant. And then there's lots of cores. So really, you know, as we've learned over the years, the amount of processing cores and the amount of GPU cores really play a huge role in the computational power of that system to handle, especially video production, and that they have, what do they call them, like 2 high efficiency cores, and then all the rest are processing cores, but that they have ones that are meant to be doing stuff on the easy, and then they have the hardcore cores working as well, so they can all work together, and that there's no bottleneck. And like, moreover, there's no needing to push data through some kind of any wires or anything. It's all part of the same silicon. So because of that, there's no bottleneck between those two. At least that's how they presented it. And that seems really interesting, because that sounds really exciting, for the sake of, like, you know, what's making laptops bigger and bigger. It's needing to add a discrete GPU. It's that those GPUs, maybe they were designed for the case that they're going into, but airflow, you know, you have one brand creating the airflow for that GPU, but then, you know, the other brand putting the computer together. And in this case, the new machine has quite a bit of new airflow. They said you'll never hear the fan, which I thought was interesting. But the one thing, and I have right now a 2015 MacBook Pro right here in front of me, and it feels just like this machine. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. This is the first time I feel like Apple's kind of gone back in time a little bit. You know, they got rid of the touch bar, which you have that machine in front of you right now. Yeah. Which it is silly. The touch bar is silly, but it looks cool. And it seemed like it could be interesting, but no one really adapted it for any kind of use. I think, but Adobe, I mean, I remember them showing me Adobe's shortcuts and that it all functioned within that.
You know, the problem with the touch bar is not its existence by itself, but the fact that it exists at the expense of the function keys. Yeah. Like, if the function keys were there and there was a touch bar, actually it might be kind of nice.
Yeah, you might, because exactly, it's like, oh, I usually press F4. How do I do that? Yeah. Oh, it's not a tactile button. It can be an F4, but it's what I want to assign it or whatever. And that's, you know, I would say I tend to be more on the Mac side of customization in my like personal computer use. I've never been one to be like, I'm going to change everything so that it's customized to me. And that's very much the PC world, right? Yes. Like, I can make lots of user settings. Usually that's the robustness of what PC offers, but I just never had a big need to, like, personalize my computer system. Like, I'd rather it work well for me than, you know, be the color I like. I don't know. It just never has really been in my need. But then again, PCs and personal computers are more personality for a lot of people these days if they're using them in and out of their professional world.
I think that means you're getting old, Chris.
Yeah, I just don't care.
I have the same attitude, and a friend of mine is kind of the same way. This buddy of mine for decades. You know, we go back to the age of, you know, building PCs at home and customizing them, or, you know, what do they call them? They call them battle stations, I guess, and playing video games on them. And you know, all of that time we acknowledge, like, oh, we can build our own PC and it's going to be way more powerful than the Mac, and it's going to be cheaper too. And you know, now we're 40 years old, and it's like, I just kind of want it to work all the time, and I don't want to have to tinker with anything. So maybe it comes with age and having a little bit, you know, fatter wallet.
I think that's it, right? It's like you're like, I'm so excited that I can save some money, when that excitement for saving that money isn't as important or as impactful, I'd say. Then all of a sudden you go, well, man, I can start feeling luxury, and then I'm not spending the time building it myself. I'm getting someone to repair something. You know, it's the things that you do that you'd rather spend time on something else than that. It's just and you actually have money to spend instead of time, which is, I think, how life goes, right? Is you have more time as you're younger, and you have more money.
Time's running out for us, I guess.
Yeah, we're just as well as dead. At least that's what my son tell me, I guess.
By the way, Final Cut Pro, it looks like I'm not finding anything that says there's a different embargo, so I think you're free to discuss it.
Yeah, and I saw some cool things about it. But, you know, the big thing about what Apple does with Final Cut is they're not like every other brand. They're not looking to come in with huge features and change the world. They tried that once, and they failed. And ever since then, I think they've had less and less support for Final Cut. So as soon as 10 came out, they thought, oh, we made this innovation. Everybody hated it. And now since then, they're like, oh, we're just going to give you incremental benefits and make it so that the software is not obsolete.
You know, there's an analogy here because in Final Cut Pro, everyone hated it when it came out. So like, okay, I guess we're going to put some stuff back in.
Yeah.
You know, like the preview screen, for example.
Yeah.
And they kept putting some stuff back in, and now it's kind of like in this stable mode. But same thing happened with the new MacBook, right? Like they put MagSafe back in, they put the SD card slot back in, they put the HDMI port back in. That's, Apple doesn't do this often.
No, and you know, the funny thing is all those things, which I would never have said, hey, those ports really matter to me. But that MacBook Pro with the Touch Bar is more beefy than this one. And when I travel, I choose this one because it's got USB ports, and I don't have to accidentally forget my dongle, which I've done on a trip. And it's like, oh, I have data, I have a computer, but I can't do anything. So
it's telling that this computer is, what is this, a 2016?
2016, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so a 5-year-old computer. It's got, just the USB-C or Thunderbolt 3 connectors.
They're just Type-C inputs.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a pain to use, in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. I still have dongles around here, and I'm still using it.
5 years later.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many more Type-C products out there, a ton, and this is great because I love having the same connector on both sides. Yeah. I love that they can power. I mean, the connector is fantastic. It was a great move, but getting rid of them all was along with the HDMI output and those other things. And it's, the really funny thing is around here, I end up running into, this is an old monitor. It takes DVI, HDMI, it might take our VGA, but it takes a newer monitor to do that. And then so you have to have this combined new computer and new monitor to have it all work together. But HDMI has been, pretty awesome. With 2.0, we can do 4K on it. That's great. It surely has its limitations. I wouldn't use it if I was really trying to do a setup. Like if I end up having the MacBook Pro at my desk, I surely won't be using HDMI to connect the monitors. But it's great to have it there. What do I use it the most for? Connecting an Atmos recorder and recording the screen so that I can have the recording right now to edit instead of having to pull it off the computer or do a screen record and have the audio drift or whatever else that happens with that. And it's just, or we do video calls on podcast, and it's like that HDMI just continues to be very helpful in a workflow sense. And I think that's the SD card too thing is absolutely still SD is still the mainstay of cards. They've gotten faster, but you're still seeing new cameras with just SD cards being introduced. Yep. So it's still a real valuable form factor, and that's hard with media. Because every 2 years there's going to be a faster media, but I think we're getting to a point where either media is going to start being built into cameras, because you might not need more than X amount of hard drive space, and so it'll have a hard drive inside it, or that there'll be another medium. But I don't think we're getting where the extra data that's added for the resolution or RAW or any of that kind of stuff is becoming too much for SD cards. I mean, there's stuff on the high end, don't get me wrong, but still the good majority of everyone, SD has still continued to be just as good as it was before. Although you need to upgrade your SD cards. You're not going to use those old slow ones with the new camera.
Although just a note on that, apparently we haven't confirmed this internally, but I believe Apple has officially confirmed it, that the SD card reader on the new MacBook Pro is limited to 250 megabyte per second cards. So there are cards up to 312 megabyte per second. Apparently, I don't know if it will just not work with them or just can't achieve those speeds.
I'm guessing it'll work because I have an iMac Pro. I put every SD card into it. It's got a slot. It's just not fast.
Oh yeah, it says here Apple's confirmed the reader supports those up to 250 megabyte per second data transfer.
Yeah, and that's probably okay.
Actually, the UHS 3 cards theoretically can go up to 624 megabytes per second, but not in this card reader.
Yeah, not when offloading the data. And, that sucks in some workflows, where you need to just, pull the data off fast. But I'd have to say, if you're in that situation, buy another media card and have some patience offloading your media, because rushing that stuff is never any good.
Another card reader.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Or just get a cheap card reader that's going to go in there. I mean, that's and there's going to be ones that, I mean, you can get card readers that can offload, 2,700 megabytes a week, whatever the maximum data transfer on Thunderbolt. I think USB-C is 1050, so it's just a little bit over a gigabyte.
So the one area where the HDMI port is really handy, which I don't know if this is why they brought it back, because like you said, a lot of modern monitors you can plug in without HDMI, but it's and maybe pros don't do this as much, at least creative professionals. But if you need to plug in to give a presentation, like plug into a projector or plug into a screen, you walk into an unknown place, HDMI will get you basically into anything you need.
Yeah, it's just so more widely adapted than, I mean, the newer TVs, you can project it on there and do those kinds of things. But sometimes just you go somewhere and that TV's not a smart TV, or that projector's not a smart projector, or whatever. And that's what we, when you go into business spaces anywhere, you just don't know what you get. The internet, even though they might have promised you it's going to be fast, who knows? And connectivity is going to be a difficult thing. And I've done enough events that, like, man, having a lot of adapters when you go and deal with those kinds of things can be really helpful, not only for yourself, but for the presentation, for the event in general, but getting things up on the screen. But yeah, I think the big takeaway is, one, they're now 16-inch, which I think is great. I think that bigger screen, I'm the price difference between getting a Pro and Max, we actually mentioned this and you said save it for the thing, is when you're building it, $200 is what it makes, is the difference between having the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. Yeah. But it's the lowest M1 Max. Is that the caveat?
No, the caveat is it has a higher minimum RAM level. Oh. So you have to upgrade the RAM as well.
And that's like another $200.
I think it's like $400.
Yeah. Storage, they always do that, so I built one with the M1 Max with 64 gigs of RAM and 8 terabytes of internal storage. Yeah. And it was nearly $7,000.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is like, if you just get rid of that much storage.
Yeah, the internal storage,
The internal storage, which by the way is blazing fast. I get why they charge so much, because this is like, this is extremely fast data transfers internally on your computer. But I just don't see the need. Like Thunderbolt has the throughput, and external drives are not inexpensive. I wouldn't ever think
not expensive.
Yeah, not expensive. Yeah. Not inexpensive. They are inexpensive, but that I would just do that for the time being. And I mean, it seems cumbersome to me that someone would do a huge project on just their laptop. Like, you're going to want to back it up. You're going to want to do a lot of things. And just having that, it's always been this way for Apple, is their internal storage has never been a value. It's never been a value worth doing. I mean, that's why brands like OWC offer packages to upgrade your stuff after the fact, and, to be able to do that. I'll be curious of how much upgrading yourself can you do to this machine? Probably none.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I would assume, because I mean, that's their memory and their storage was soldered in the past. So I'm guessing they are not going away from that. But let's face it, how many people are actually upgrading their Macs? They're replacing them if they're doing that. But I mean, it's just crazy, because like, this Mac here, it does a lot of things great. In fact, I don't really run into a lot of things other than like its internal storage that is a problem. So it's still probably got, $500,000 on, is there any PC that's from 2015 that would have any dollar value? It's just insane that Mac continues to have used value for their products well after they're outdated. They're outdated by Mac standards, let alone in PC standards. I mean, typically, even when they've released in the past, the CPU from Intel has been the last model, just because I don't think they're really working together to make sure they have a launch together. I don't think Apple's really ever trying to do that. But so it's always been like, oh, you're at least a season behind on the internal stuff, but I got to have my my pretty machine that, makes me feel like I'm important or whatever reason you want to have that Mac. But
they don't even look that different year to year.
No, not anymore. Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like I could take this 15 out, and now people will think, oh man, you got the new one.
Yeah.
Although I bet the Apple doesn't light up on the back.
Yeah, and the thing with the new one is it kind of has this retro look where the edges aren't tapered anymore. It's like kind of fat all the way.
It's far
around.
more square, like the new iPads are.
Yeah,
that has a more square feel, but it doesn't feel futuristic like most Apple products end up feeling.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think that's probably for a point though. Like, they went back to doing stuff. So okay, we'll just give you all the things that you wanted again.
I think you're right. Yep.
Which makes me wonder though, like when Apple has done this, when they've succumbed to what everybody wants them to do rather than them making it and we liking it. What's this mean? Does this mean the next MacBook Pro they just will care less about, or I don't know. It seems like it's a pretty big category. I mean, laptops are outselling desktops, I'm sure.
My guess is this part of why they may have done this is to differentiate the line from the MacBook Air, which, whenever the next one comes out, it's going to seem razor thin compared to the MacBook Pro. Pros don't care as much about the thinness of the device, as long as you can put in your backpack.
No, I would have to say, it being able to be in my bag when I go to places and still work well and, take the bruising, that's far more important than how well it looks for me personally. Yeah. Now, that's because I want to actually do work on it. I can't say I'd ever really, because I'm easily distracted, do any kind of editing in a coffee house or something like that. It's like I'd much rather sit in a room by myself than be around a bunch of people doing it because I'd be distracted. But the look being seen. I mean, I don't know if anybody's going, "Ooh, you got a Mac."
No, they're so common now. No one cares. So, Chris, assuming that Apple's claims are true, what do you think this does to PCs over the next couple of years, or Windows laptops, I should say?
Well, I think it positions AMD to do something because they offer both CPUs and GPUs, right? So if they can put their Threadripper with their awesome GPUs or do something innovative in that space, and I'm sure they're working on it. They have to. Whoever releases something, it's like every other brand's doing
they're
something.
On each other anyway.
Exactly. They're doing all that stuff. So I think it uniquely positions AMD. However, AMD has been the value for a long time, and I think that might not be possible to be the value and be that way because their Threadripper stuff, innovative, not cheap, but it's not like an i9 or something from Intel. But I think it uniquely positions them to be able to hopefully put that technology together. I think this kind of puts Intel out there on an island and really challenges the value of their products. I mean, they've been so just built into things for so long, and with one not even an Intel option on Macs, which is funny because I remember when I first started Mac, that Intel or anybody other would be in there making stuff. They weren't.
Yeah, that's right.
And so now, and they went to Intel's like, oh, awesome, because there was so much more support. And now they're like, no, we'll make this thing and it'll support all that as well. So they've digressed in that way as well, I guess. But I think it hopefully positions them well. Intel, I mean, the thing is, Intel's huge, so they probably are doing something similar, and they already do have combined GPU and CPU, but it's been on the low end side, and the high end stuff on Intel is always like jaw dropping when you see the price tag of their high end chips. Yes. Are like $2,000 for a CPU. Wow. But I'm sure it's fantastic and amazing. Oh, yeah. And for those that need it, it's probably second to none. But it's now that it's not going to be included in PC or in Macs, they're going to have to probably be more competitive amongst all the PC brands to get their chips in there. And you're already seeing a lot of these brands that were doing Intel chips that are offering an AMD option of the same thing. And it's never more expensive. And so I think this really challenges Intel in the space to be innovative because they're going to have a hard time justifying the value they're offering.
I mean, you think this is the end of the discrete card in laptops? I mean, if you're looking forward to the next 5 years, it got to be going away. Like one thing we didn't discuss with the MacBook Pro is the very low power consumption of these chips.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a big deal, right? Just as we go along, the power consumption of everything is going to be a competitive difference.
Yeah.
When energy is the most, just like, just when energy goes up, all the rest of the things have to compete with it, and that's going to be a big deal. I mean, I have an Acer that I use that has you can overclock it, and the fans come on, and it just sounds like a car revving its engine. It's
exactly.
loud, and that's just to get the top performance from it. So that makes a big difference, I think, especially in an editing space. Like, I don't want to hear my computer; I want to hear the work I'm doing. So I think that makes a big difference. Now, on the side, when we were talking about GPUs, the hard thing is NVIDIA just released not just, but the RTX stuff is small. It's fitting into these small, complex, or, these small, powerful, portable machines. So, what NVIDIA is doing with this stuff, the crazy thing is NVIDIA is, with the amount of people that buy them for Bitcoin mining and stuff like that, they've had a huge influx of new business from a vertical they weren't, I don't know if they were competing for, but that's what's kept a lot of people from getting these, is because they're not available because people are using them to mine with. But that's more like a GPU for a desktop. I don't think they're running out of the laptop ones. They're definitely being offered in everything, and they're very, very impressive. But I mean, what's NVIDIA going to do? Work with Intel to make those things work together? Because that's the thing, is I think that's what Apple is. Apple's conniving. They're smart and going, okay, if we do this, how is everybody else going to be able to compete with this? And they're knowing who's going to be able to make changes and do it. And it might make new partnerships. I don't know. I mean, Intel with NVIDIA, that sounds like a pretty strong partnership if they did something like that. That would be something that could rival these new machines. And every time they're talking about when Apple was presenting these things, to any laptop or any notebook on the market. Mm-hmm. So if you call Dell calls their computers workstations, then
is that a notebook?
Yeah, is that a notebook? Do they consider that when they're saying these things? I kind of doubt it, but I think that they're going, oh, it's this weight. This is this is 3 pounds. It's the fastest 3 pound thing by 10 times number or whatever. They're gonna try to inflate those numbers so whatever way they have. But the technology speaks to, I think, some of the bottlenecks that have happened, which is really the strength that you need between your CPU and GPU to do some of these high computational things like 3D rendering, and that really makes having to do ray tracing and that kind of thing is not easy at all. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens, because I know ray tracing, like real-time ray tracing, was what NVIDIA was going, this is the RTX, it does real-time ray tracing. You can get shadows and reflections in real time, and maybe this isn't that space. Maybe they're just going in the professionals, but not the 3D artists. But they showed a bunch of it, so I don't know. We're gonna have to put it to a test, and we'll find out what it can do. It seems like they haven't raised the price too much. I mean, you can get, it was the top end with just their entry level 1 terabyte of storage. It was like $3,800. That seems pretty reasonable if it does the things they're saying. Now, could I spend $4,000 on a machine? I don't know. I don't think you got the top end one, right?
No, I got the cheapest Max I could get, which is still an expensive machine, but I do plan to keep this machine for 10 years. I don't churn through machines very quickly.
Well, you just retired your iPhone 2?
iPhone 7, but yeah, pretty close.
7, well, yeah. I mean, it's on 13 now.
The only reason I'm buying this new computer is because my old MacBook Pro is no longer getting updates, and is to the point where I can't open files like simple spreadsheets anymore, because I use numbers because I don't trust Google for my personal stuff. But the numbers updated. I shared it with someone, and they're on a new version of numbers. I can't open it anymore because I can't get the updates. So
I think that's somewhat by design. Unfortunately, I'm sure it is
sad,
probably a limitation. I'm sure it's like, we just can't support this being stable, so they just don't support it anymore at all, because know that you'll buy a new machine if it doesn't. Because I've had an iPad, I've had phones, same thing. Like, oh, I can't update to the newest OS, and you can only exist in that world for so long before all the software that was supported is no longer being updated for that OS. And so any bug you find, you're going to live with that for the rest of its life. And eventually they just become so buggy, you just can't do anything.
Yeah. So that laptop now has been relegated to an entertainment consumption machine.
Nice.
Just a little portable video player, Okay, we should probably call it there.
Yeah, we should. This is about, we're at 38 minutes.
All right. Well, surprisingly exciting times in the laptop space, which has been kind of stagnant for a long time. It seems like just iterative updates. So this is exciting news. Okay, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Big thanks to everyone for listening. As always, if you want to support the show, we'd love it if you subscribe to our newsletter. We deliver it several times a week, and we deliver all kinds of tutorials and reviews and buyer's guides straight to your inbox. So you can sign up for that at videomaker.com/newsletter. It's the best way to support what we do here. So for Chris Munlux and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.